over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist. Get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zeimet.
And welcome to the Beverly Zeimet Show, where being the best you can be just got easier. My guest today is Juliet over here. She is from London. Welcome, Juliet. And I will let her pronounce her last name for you. How do you pronounce that, Juliet?
It's Atanasova.
Atanasova. Oh boy, I really messed that one up.
Don't worry, it's Juliet.
It's Juliet. It's Juliet, and I tell you, the name fits you perfectly. You're beautiful, just like Juliet and Romeo, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, gosh, all the way from London, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And the audience is going to be in for a treat. She's got something here she's going to talk about that I had never heard of, right? And I've heard of a lot of modalities and a lot of different, things that go on. But wow, she caught me on this one. So she's going to explain a little bit about that and how you can make contact with her. So, Julia, why don't you tell the audience how they can get a hold of you? And then we'll go into talking about what it is that you do.
Yeah, you can contact me. You can find my page on Facebook, which is Juliet Atanasova. And I think, Beverly, you should have the correct spelling and
Yes.
the whole name somewhere.
Yeah, it's right up on screen right now. The people are looking at it there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook, or you can send me a message. There should be my number as well, and we can take it from there.
Right. And so let's talk about this systemic family constellation. That's a
Yeah.
mouthful.
It is a mouthful, absolutely.
Right.
Originally, the method starts from Bert Hellinger, which is a person who was searching to see how is the movement of the soul, and then from there he went to a tribe in Africa, which was called Zulu. And then he saw how there the people, instead of excluding people when they've done something wrong or something was, not really acceptable from the tribe, they would actually include the person, and everybody will try to find out how they, what was the thing that the whole tribe did in order to make this person do this thing. So everybody was taking responsibility in this kind of situations. So from there, he found some laws of the universe, which are 3 specific ones, which of course I'm going to talk about later. And there are some other very key concepts which we can look at. And basically, the theory is that we, as a human being, the whole family and our family system where we come from, we carry one shared soul. So we have our soul as an individual, but the whole family shares one soul. And if something is not in balance, then the whole system is not balanced. So let's say somebody is being excluded. For example, they did something really bad, and the whole family doesn't accept that. And let's say that was 3 generations before you. And that has been passed down the generations ahead, because somebody needs to kind of pay for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, that needs to be reminded. That action needs to be reminded, so everybody from the family can look at it, and then from there, the healing is going to start, and they will accept it. And all of it is about acceptance. So nothing can be excluded. Everybody needs to be accepted, no matter how bad they were, how good they were, or something like this. These are some of the key factors that we look at.
Wow, that is so interesting. That is interesting. It kind of incorporates itself into what's going on in this current time, right? Where everybody's at home. Right? And when you're not used to being in a family unit like that continuously day after day after day, there can be some challenges, right? And so they're static, so not everybody's going to agree 100% all the time. And it's almost this forced thing, and I think that just the idea of being forced and being told that you have to stay home, and you have to be socially distanced, you have to be in confinement, or whatever words they're using these days, right? It's like, wow. And it just kind of goes against the principle of your freedom, shall we say, right? And so now there's that friction. So, but you're saying, if I understood this correctly, the theory behind the program is that, let's just say someone 3 generations ago did something bad. They went out and they robbed a bank, or they killed somebody or something like that, right? And they were kind of isolated from the family. Nobody wanted to associate. They didn't want to be known that this was a relative or whatever. So you're saying that energy, that soul connection energy, is still being passed down through those different generations to the current, and it's impacting. So how does that impact the current if it's 2 and 3 generations old?
It could be even 7.
Okay.
It could be even 7. You don't need to know the people. You don't, because obviously nobody knows 7 generations back, or, nobody knows these kind of things. But what they say, there is the field of knowledge, which every soul is connected. So basically, everybody knows everything about everybody, and especially our family. So we kind of know, these are like a hidden dynamics. These are like, the underwater stones, which are just, they're there. So what happens is, let's say the example you began 3 generations back, somebody murdered somebody else, and this person was sent to jail, and nobody wanted to talk about this person. So this is already a secret, and that's already heavy for the system. Everybody knows that there's something that is hidden, but nobody talks about it. So for example, in the generations ahead, could be the next generation, could jump 1 generation, it could go to the next one. Somebody will repeat the same destiny, or in a way, they will do the same thing. So this person who is from the new generations will remind about this person, and everybody will know. Everybody will be like, oh, this is like this uncle who murdered somebody and he was sent to jail, but nobody will say anything, because but this is why people are actually repeating these things, and they don't know about it, because it was a traumatizing situation, because it creates so much not only fear, but it creates so much shame on the family. And and this is already in our DNA, that also goes in there. So traumatic situations, like for example, people were in the war, lots of the mental illnesses, they are symptoms of the war, because somebody was killed, or many people were killed, and just 1 person from our family survived, for example. And this person who survived from the rest of the people couldn't take all this pain of seeing so many people who died. Then this person, that pain, it stays with him, and it needs 3 to 4 generations for this to clear out. So it could repeat each time in a different way. That's the hardest thing. It's very individual how we can catch what exactly can happen from the stories, because it can transform only in a way where this person is being drawn to death. These people could have this feeling that they would always live on the edge. They would always like to live their life on the extreme, like high speed and things like that, because they always want to be on this or that side. And even though, for example, their life is not, you can see people have a good life nowadays. We have everything. We live in abundance, and you can see so many people with depression, so many people, they don't know how to find their path. So many people, they're so confused and have an anxiety and panic attacks. Why? Because back in the generations, let's say their grandma was, she was left, her mother died when she was young, let's say. And this girl left so abundant. She was, she had to grow quicker and things like that. And then her granddaughter will feel exactly the same, like she doesn't have a mother, like she doesn't have anybody to rely on. but actually she has. And this is our hidden loyalty. This is something that we are loyal to because we believe, like our unconscious believes, that if we don't do that, if we don't pay for it, we are not going to be accepted in the family, because everybody wants to be like the people in the family. If you ask
Right.
little kids, who do you want to become when you grow up, and they will say, oh, I want to be like mommy, I want to be like daddy. This is a hidden loyalty, is the child's blind love. That's how Bert Hellinger, um that's how he addresses it.
Wow, that is so fascinating. It really it had my cogs moving around up here, with
I
some of the
know.
stuff that I do, and I'm thinking that actually makes sense. Working on myself and the family dynamic, because I know a lot of the clearing and the stuff that I've done over the last 5 or 6 decades, right?
Yeah.
It's made a difference in how my family members, related to different things. And I even watched how my parents changed and some of my aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
It's like, it. And I knew it had to do with the DNA, and I knew it had to do with the emotional stuff, because it really did make an impact. But how you're saying what it is, wow! I mean, that's even deeper into
It
that
is.
DNA, and I've been working deeper into that emotional DNA as to there's more here somewhere along the line, because I work with hidden factors, things that you recognize and the things that you don't recognize, right?
Mhm.
To try to get deeper. But wow, working with this systemic constellation is like, man, I'm going to check that out. I'm really going to check that out, because it makes so much more sense. Why, how your history, and the generations, and I know it makes generations, and it works through that bloodline, whether you're going forwards or backwards, right? It's going to make
Yeah.
a huge difference. And how you explained it in detail, it just really begins to make sense, And gosh, sometimes I guess you wonder too, is like, why did I do what I just did? It's like, well, this is crazy. This isn't me. It's like,
Yep.
what the heck? You ever have
Yeah.
that? Yeah, you ever have that feeling or question yourself, like, where did that come from? Right?
I can give you a straight example because sometimes we do things which we can't explain why we've done them, but we've done them,
Sure.
and very often is a repetitive pattern, and this is already a sign that this is systemic problem, which means you can look for the cause of it in your generations. So what
Okay.
you need to do is you need to ask. Let's say, for example, you have a repetitive pattern of losing your job. You constantly lose your job,
Okay.
you get fired. No matter how hardworking you are, no matter what happens, you lose your job. And then
Okay.
you're like, oh my god, this is like a repetitive pattern. What the hell I've done again? And then you got this self doubt. And of course, many of the Eastern spirituality, they teach us that is depending on us, that we are the creators of our life. But I
Right.
would say that 20%, yes, we have our free will, but 80% is down to our generations. So everything that we have in our life is a repetitive scenario from the things before, from the people who came before us. And when you get fired from this, then you start looking in the family who had some kind of the same destiny, or something really tragic or dramatic happened, or somebody had to lose their job, or somebody had to sacrifice themselves in order to survive, for the family to survive, and all these kind of things. And then you might find out that, for example, you had a grandfather who was a boss of a big company, or like he was leading some big things, but they were bad things. For example, he wasn't doing really something that is very moral or things like that. And then
Okay.
because of this, now you get this, and you always get fired. So this is for that could be one example why we feel it. Many people, I've had many times clients are asking me, I feel this burden on my shoulders and it's so heavy. You can have a physical pain. The pain in your shoulders is the baggage you carry from your family. And the
Right.
simplest technique that you can do is literally, I would like to give you back whatever is not mine. This is not mine, and your destiny is your destiny, my destiny is my destiny. And of course, towards this, we have healing words, because they are very simple, very accurate, very truthful, and our soul knows if that's true or not.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That was a very important point that you made. The soul knows,
The
sometimes
soul knows.
and that's that higher consciousness, right? And so
Yeah,
sometimes our consciousness, the ego self here, it gets in the way, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
also recognizing what's stored and buried in that subconscious. So it makes sense. Not only was it our environment, and our direct impact from our parents, right,
yeah,
and aunts and uncles, and in that generation that you were growing up in, impacting all the elements and the things that you store in that subconscious. But I can see, now from what you're explaining, how it could be, from their generation and from their generation, which I have, had an understanding of it, but not in the detail now where you're going with this and how it really does move forward. It makes totally, totally good sense,
yeah,
and again, like you say, you start getting back 6 generations, 7 generations, 8 generations, unless you've done a genealogy chart, but you may not know all the details of what happened back there, but you'll know who was there, right? So it's cleaning that bloodline, and that's some of this stuff that I actually worked on. Oh my gosh, I said probably in the 90s when I started working through that and understanding that it does make a difference in the bloodline. And it seems like different people that I work with that come to me on these different levels is they are actually the healer of the bloodline, and you
yeah,
can recognize that, right? And
yeah.
so you start working from that level to clear that bloodline. But my gosh, what you're sharing here today is so critical and so important to really understand the depth of what that is all about, and to have someone who has done research on that, like you said, and started clearing things from that point. So, we have an opportunity here now because we're back in this family unit,
Yeah.
in a force situation, so to speak, and moving into the fifth dimension, right? And that unity and that connection of moving
Yeah.
into that awakening level and stuff like that, to be able to do, like you said, that tribe. Was it in
Yeah.
Africa?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they took, someone that was really running amok and being dysfunctional, and brought them center stage and said, "Hey, why are you doing this? And what's going on? And what can we do to fix that, so that moving forward, they're not taking, like you say, a burden from that past to make an impact in your DNA,
Yeah.
right?" That's
Um,
beautiful.
it is, and actually, it's always good. Very often, I find with the clients, they don't know the history of their family. They feel like they are so separate from them, and they have nothing to do with them. But there's
Right.
no tree without their roots. How can you have fruits without having your roots grounded in
That's
this?
yeah, that's right.
You know,
Right.
and they don't know the story of the family. They don't know who was in that family. They don't know what their grandparents did, as a job. They didn't know what was their destiny. And very often people, when they had traumatic situations, they don't talk about it. They don't
Right.
know about this kind of tragedies, but they're within their DNA. And my suggestion is always, go to your grandparents and whoever you have left, ask them, even reach to this far away auntie that is somewhere, give her a call and ask her, can you tell me something about my family? And I would really welcome people who don't know a story about their families to start gathering these stories, because this is what am I doing. Because when I started, I was like, oh my god, I don't know much facts about it. And I know some bad stories, but what was the good stories about this
Right.
person?
Right.
What
Right.
and we need to see this person. We need to make a
Right.
space in our heart for them, even though they did something bad. Even though somebody needs to have this big heart to welcome all these people who were not seen for who they are. So this is very important. But the interesting thing is, when we work with family constellation, it's not necessary for the person to know the full story, because the field of knowledge knows itself.
Right.
And a very, very important concept, because how we do family constellation is by role play. So basically, we can do it in a group, or we can do it in one-to-one session with little figures. And I can actually show you these little figures, and it's so, so powerful. So let's say you can have these little figures, which are going to represent,
Okay, those are cute little guys.
yeah. So I've got plenty of them. This is my working crew. That's how I call it.
Oh, the working crew. I love it. Oh my gosh. And they're not expensive, right? They don't eat. You don't have to buy them
No,
clothes. You don't have to.
there's no, like
They don't talk back.
No, they do. You need to be able to recognize what they say. But it's so we do it these two ways. By we can do it in a group, or we can do it in one-to-one with this little helpers, or of course we can do it in a visualization. So like in a meditation state. When we do that, of the people who don't they have never met your parents, even for some people, when we work with many generations back, people have already died, but they can
Right.
still connect to this field of knowledge, and they can download information, and they can tell you.
Wow.
But you need to ask this person, do you agree to play the role of my grandmother? Do you agree to play the role of my grandfather? They need to agree to it. They need to say yes. And then from there, they need to just observe what's going to happen with their body, because the energy is going to, she's going to help them to feel what's there for them to say. And then, of course, they will report back. They will say what's going on. And in family constellation, they say, report back with words, but do never act, because sometimes you can have, situations where people are quite angry,
Right.
you know, do not act. From there, they tell you, you see how is the dynamic between these people, and then after that, it comes the healing words, which you can see how people, they find it so strong, to say, for example, I was loyal to you, and because out of my blind love, I was doing this and that with my life, and now I give it back to you because that doesn't belong to me. And then the realization within the person, even after a session, people's faces they start glowing, they get,
Wow.
the great thing about this is that family constellation is result orientated. So the person needs to have an intention. What do you want to get from this session? And then from there, after that, they will get it. At the end, they will get what they came for. Because,
Sure.
I always say that, people who come to me, they're very brave, because it's not easy to see the pain of so many people who didn't have the energy to see it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And very often I have people coming and saying, I have such a big resistance to come. And I said, yes, because you have important tasks to do today. That's why.
Right.
And this is kind of the whole process, and that's how we do it. And as I said, it's in individual session with these little helpers, and on the group one
Right.
as well.
Right. I could see where this would definitely be impactful for, say, someone who's been adopted, right?
Absolutely. So the first thing that we start working on, it's the parents, the relationship between the child and the parents. And very often what I've observed, like in every family, almost the child has become the parent, and the parent has become the child.
Right. Right.
And for children who have been adopted, this is, they don't have, because what they say is that our right side is our father and our left side is our mother.
Right.
So you don't have connection with them, even though you never seen them, but your body knows, you're part of them. And no matter where they are, we are all connected. So you need to reconnect with them, and you need to thank them for the life they've gave you, because you need to accept your destiny, because your destiny was that, and you need to say yes to your destiny, and yes to life, and yes to your parents for who they are. You don't need to ask for more. You shouldn't actually ask for more. They've given you enough. That's what Bert Hellinger said, that they've given you enough. Whatever they give you, it's the only thing that they should give you is your life, and your task is to pass it on ahead.
Okay.
So
It's interesting, when you see, adoptive, kids. Sometimes they can fit into that new home because they just accepted, as you said, they just accepted that parent there as their guardian, as their teachers, right? And made the best out of life. But knowing, also that they were adopted, but not letting that, say, rule their life, right? So much, where you see, others have a big issue with what's going on, right? And it's like they don't want to accept the fact that they're not with their birth parents, and they're with someone that's not their birth parents, and so it's always something running amok, And now, could that be from, say, ancestral lineage, where, let's say, maybe 3 or 4 generations back, parents were killed or something, and the child then was put into a foster home or a home with, relatives or a neighbor or whatever the case may be, that they're feeling that intensity?
Yeah, they could, depending on the story. And we had a situation where every 5th child was given to adoption to somebody. Like, there was a person who every 5th child was given to adoption. And
Oh, wow.
actually, yes. So that has been a pattern through generations, and I don't remember how many times that had happened. And of course, this is being because there wasn't enough food, there wasn't enough
Sure.
resources, And this is actually, the sad thing is, when we do family constellation, we need to say, we're really sorry, but we had to do that because there wasn't enough resources for you, and not only for children given, to for adoption, also for children who has been aborted, because this is also something that we need to look at, because nothing in the universe is disappearing like that. Everything stays. So even though the parent, the mother, was a mother to this child for a very little amount of time, the first 2 months, the first 3 months or something, she was still the mother of this child. And this is also very, I've had clients like this, there is a certain technique that has to be done in order for this energy to be cleared out, and, for the child, because sometimes the child remains waiting for this acknowledgement, because, let's say, and that's also another thing is very important to look at, is whoever came first, so their place needs to be respected. So let's say the mother after that had more children, and the first child will say, actually the second child will say, I am the first child, but no, you're not, because he's trying to replace the place of the dead child. So this child could have this urge to go to death, and
Okay.
it will always feel empty, or they could be overworking because they need to work for 2 people, because they need to make they need to fulfill this gap, they need to fulfill this empty space. And it's important for the parents to say to their children, listen, you could have had, and normally parents know if they could have had a girl or a boy, you could have had a sister, and you're actually the second child, you're not the first one. And when that happens, normally children, they can breathe, like a burden has fallen down, and they're like, oh my God,
Wow.
like, no. Yeah, I felt like that all the time. And also children who they're very much attached to their a teddy bear or something like this, their
Yes.
imaginary friend. That could also be a brother or a sister who weren't acknowledged. So these are things that they're very important, and we need to always respect whoever came first. How is the elder came first, and then the younger, and so on. That's how it is. And with children who are lost, or children who died in their early age, or all of this, it needs to be acknowledged, it needs to be seen.
Wow, that opens up another whole arena, of life and activity. So I mean, I know women who have had, 3 and 4 and 5 miscarriages. Right.
This is also very sad. Yeah, that's also another thing. So they need to also see that, and they need to acknowledge that,
Right.
as well.
Yeah, and on occasion, once in a while, I've worked with a woman who has had miscarriage or actually had an abortion or something like that, and then a few years later had a child, and it was the same soul that came into that child. Right.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you didn't let me in here 2 years ago. I'm coming back, right? I'm coming back for a second time. You know,
Yeah,
so I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
that's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wow. That has just been so amazing listening to how you shared this message and this modality that is like fascinating. So what are some of the other things that you do?
Apart from this, I do numerology, which helps people to find out their purpose in life,
Mm-hmm.
which also helped me as well. And the method is called Matrix of Success. It's it's amazing because it specifically tells you the exact jobs that you could be
There
doing,
you
and
go.
very, yeah, absolutely. And it tells you all the traits in you and all the potentials in you that you can have and develop. Is very interesting because I didn't know that family constellation and this method can collaborate together. I never assumed that, because I fell in love in this method straight away after I heard it. And it was so true to me that it gave me so much answers. For example, if you have number 9, uh, that means that you're a very old soul. So let's say people who are born on the 9th, or they're born in September or something like this, they're definitely an old soul, and they have this inner wisdom, which I always had. And people would say to me, how can you be so, that was back in time, how can you be so wise for your age? How do you know these kind of things? And I'm like, I don't know, I just know them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many people are like this. And this is because you're an old soul. And then you have your the missions of your soul, the
Right.
gifts from the universe, your money flow, the ideal jobs, how you communicate and how you resolve conflicts, characteristic of your ideal partner, who is going to work best in your the capability that you can have together. And then you have your social life and your family life as well. And also you have the periods in your life. So to 40 years old, from 40 to 60, from 60 to 80, and from 80 above. And there's very interesting energies and numbers, as I said, the old soul, and then you have the manifesting energy, you have the karmic
Right.
energy, which actually comes with a great gift, which is to be able to connect to this field of knowledge, and to be able to to be this clairvoyance person, these kind of things. And they have very strong intuition. And I've done it to so many people already, and I've never heard this is not true. Never, not even once.
Yeah.
And the most people who didn't believe me, these are the most who fell in love with it afterwards. And this is and this is very funny, because I get this as the wife gives that as a present to the husband.
Right.
And they're the one who normally don't trust, and they're a bit like, let me see what she's going to
That's right.
say.
Let me see what I can do to like really, trip her up here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just stay and listen for 1 hour. I'm non-stop talking, and I just tell them all these things about themselves, and then at the end they say, oh my god, all you said was true. And I'm like, oh, because I'm so conscious what they think, what they're gonna say, because they have no expression on their face. They don't
Right.
say anything. And you're
Right.
like, oh my god.
Like, are you alive over there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting for some reaction, emotions,
You're
but then at
right.
the end, they're like, oh my god, that was so true. And after that, they ask me things, and it's very powerful and amazing. So
Yeah. Numerology is very powerful. God, I've used that like forever. And
absolutely.
everything. I mean, I get a new license plate on my car. The first thing I do is I do the numerology on the number, right? If I'm staying at a place, I do the numerology on the house. And
Ah,
everything I do numerology with, it's become so automatic in my life. And these days now, I mean, when you're looking at double digits and triple digits and four
yeah,
digits, and they all have different intensity meanings and stuff, and there are messages. And we've talked at
absolutely.
different times on the show about, again, being aware of everything that is around you and what's going on, because there is a message there in everything that you see if you pay attention, right? And
Yeah,
it can help you prevent, an accident or getting into a situation that maybe you shouldn't have been in. It's called being in the wrong place at the right time, right?
Yeah.
Right. So pay attention to what's going on. And numerology, I mean, it's an ancient art. It's been around forever. Just like the zodiac, can tell so much about your life, right? And when you start to understand that we are star beings, and we've been around the world a time or two, right? And with that soul activity, and to be able to, how you put things in focus with those generational things, kind of shines a whole new light on a lot of other modalities and things out there. Kind of just changes the perspective a little bit, differently. And it's just so awesome to be able to, have people come onto the show like this and share with our audience things that are like new and fascinating, yet they're really not new. They're ancient, but at the same time, they're new to us, right? And to be able to have that. So anyone out there listening, if you like what Juliet has shared with you, comment below, ask us questions. What's going on here, right? And they will get answered. I promise you that. And where it's going to take you and how life can change. So I hope we've given you some food for thought here. That maybe, just maybe, some of the things and the actions that you're taking and the things that but you don't know how that are so crazy, right, are coming from that ancestral lineage, and it's tapping on you to say, hello, I'm here. Hello, do something with me, right? And here's a way now to understand that. So you're really not crazy. Right? Because sometimes what's the first thing we think? Oh my gosh, I must be going insane, Because why is this thing keep haunting? And our dreams, our dreams, can tell us so many different stories as well, from the generational, backwards or forwards, right?
Yeah.
So, have you worked in any of the dream type therapies, with generations? Have you?
No, not yet. No, haven't.
Not
touched
yet.
there.
She says yet. I like that word, yet.
Absolutely. Always leave a room for something,
That's
else
right.
to discover.
That's
Absolutely.
right. There's just so much out there, and it's all good. It's all good, and it doesn't matter how you get to that ultimate end. It matters that you get there, and that's kind of what this show is all about. Being that best you that you can be every step of the way. Every moment in time. When you get up in the morning, what are you going to do to be that best you? And to be able to share what you're sharing, Juliet, with your clients is like, wow, it gives them a different perspective on what they can do to share with the world and share with their family to make it a better unit, not just themselves, but a better unit in that DNA, right?
Absolutely. And the time that we're facing today, I strongly believe is our all collective consciousness, and we can see the repetitive pattern. This is not the first time the humanity is facing such a
plague or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah. So this is already, you can see the pattern that we have already had it before, and then we're facing it now again. And this is all could be because of our collective consciousness that that we've created somehow, and we are not working. Not all of the people. You can still see how people are divided. Some people are very spiritual and they work on themselves on a daily basis, or or like, let's say once a month they have a session or something like this. They do something about it. It's not only just to raise their frequency, but also to help themselves and have a really better life and to be a better human being, and make an impact on the world, because it's not going and changing the world, it's changing your inner world. And this is what we see now, that actually what is within, that's what is outside. And we can see what's outside, and oh my gosh, what means is within the people. Oh my god.
Yes.
So this is a great way that we can touch into these things, because in family constellation, we don't only put the members of the family, we can also put the whole situation in the world. So let's say there was a war, or let's say it was the virus, and how this virus is impacting this family and what is actually doing, because now um, I'm sure that many people were so scared, and they felt so unstable, because that was reminding of the war, how back in the times the shelves was
Sure.
empty,
Sure.
and there's this war going on in their head, and they're scared. What's going to happen? How it's going to be? Oh my God, are we going to survive? Oh, let's run. Let's go somewhere. Let's get all the food that we can, because we might starve after that. Because you can see humanity has been under starvation so many times. In
Right.
each country, it's different story, but it's a pattern. And this is within our DNA, and that has been awakened now. And how do you clear this? What do you do about it? How can you separate yourself and not being loyal to your grandfather who was starved to death? And then how do you fix
Right.
that? What do you do?
Right.
And all these answers we can find them within family constellation, and doing our own inner work. And now it's emerging. That's what I was saying, and talking to so many clients, friends, and everybody. It's emerging. Do what you can do to raise your vibration, to free yourself, to be a better human, to be, to have an impact, because everything is within you. And now we've been forced to look, and
Right.
we need to
Right.
learn the lesson. We need to learn this lesson, and we need to be more loving between each other. We need to collaborate. We need to help each other more, because now everyone was so individual, so separated, not only from the family, but from society, because everybody's
Right.
so determinated.
Right.
I'm gonna go and get this money, I'm gonna go and get this success, I'm gonna go and buy this car, but you're empty inside.
Right. Right.
So these are things which I've known for a long time. And for me was also a shock, this situation, to face it. And I was like, oh my God, I've been working with people who, let's say, they've lost their loved ones because of certain illnesses they have come, and things like that. And this is now a reality. This is now what we're living in. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was I was in shock. I was really in shock, because for me that was my work, which I had to see and look at, and and hold the space for people to cry it out, to go through it. And now, we
No, it's just
again,
reality, right? And
it's it's, it's
yeah.
crazy.
I love
It's
your passion for what you're doing. I mean, it's there in every cell of your body. I mean, it's there, and that is, I honor that. I do honor that. That
Thank
is so
you.
important. And what you're saying kind of makes sense. I mean, when you look at how things are coming back up, in our faces, with the isolation. So we look at the depression, the time of depression.
Yeah,
We look at the Holocaust, right?
yeah,
And we
yeah,
can even go back generations where we go into the Roman wars and things like that, right? You go
yeah,
back into the days, where the dungeons were, I mean, civilizations backwards and backwards and backwards, where we are a bloodline coming forward, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I like how you put that when you said, here we are today in this situation, being faced with some of the same elements that have transpired, years ago and centuries ago. And
yeah,
and to see some of that replay, and the repeat. So when you look at the repeat, every so many years things repeat. And it now it really starts to take on a different perspective on how you described, with the constellation thing here, that it really starts to make sense. I mean, when you look at phobias, right? Phobias are
yeah,
things that come from, a generation of DNA type of thing, right?
yeah,
So there's it's there, it's
yeah.
there, and we have different words, for the different things, but it's beautiful listening to you describe with the systemic constellation system, and it really, for me, and I hope for our listeners too, puts a different perspective on those things. And it's like, now it's time. We all have time that we've been given
Yeah.
that was occupied doing, kind of wasted things, like
Yep.
driving. I mean, some people drive 1 and 2 hours to get to work, and then 1 and 2 hours to get back, right? So
Yeah.
let's just say, now you've got 2 to 4 hours that you are
Yeah.
in your home environment, and okay, you're carrying on business, from home. But what about the time element, the before and the after hours that you have now? What are you going to do to fill those
Yeah.
hours productively, right?
Yeah.
Productively. And you're in this family unit, and if you're fortunate to be able to have your family around you, take advantage of it, because you're never going to get this time back again. Don't waste it, right?
Yeah.
Don't waste
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
um it's very interesting time, and things can get very messy within the family, because even now I still have clients calling me and they say, oh my god, is a war at home, please help me. And and I can just say to them, for example, they have a problem with their wife, and I'm just like, look at your wife and just say to her, I accept you, and I'm seeing you for who you are. And even if people are out there,
Right.
they have husbands and wives, and they're, the situation at home is a bit fiery, and everybody's on the edge, and just look at it, look at them, remember why you are in this unit with this person, why have you chosen to be with
Right.
this person, and just look at them and just say, I accept you for who you are, and I see you for who you are, and I love you for who you are. These are the words of the soul, because that's how we should speak. But because we are caught up in all of this, so much chatting, and
Right.
things that they're not truth of the soul, they don't touch the soul, they are not at the bottom of it. And that's what family constellation does with the healing words, because we say what is the truth of the soul, and that's what makes it so, and actually the wife is going to look at the husband, and he'll be like, oh my god, this is the person I fell in love with, and she'll be like, yeah, I accept you, and I see you for who you are, and this is the absolute truth, and
Yes.
this is the absolute truth, and this is, you know um you can do magic just with one thing, with one word, with one sentence. And it's amazing, but it can get really messy as well if you don't know all of this. And
Yeah.
actually, for couples, I want to say something, because I'm sure many people, I've had so many times people saying, oh my god, I am the same as my mother, or oh my god, I am the
Right.
same as my father. I
Yes.
never, when I was a child,
Yes.
I was saying I would never be like you, and now
I
I am
am.
the same. I am the same
Yes.
wife. I'm doing the same things. I'm talking the same way. I'm using the same phrases. What is going on? And I
Yes.
will tell you why. Because our mother has carried us, and we are still energetically connected to her. And if we never come out of this field, of her own field, if we never separated ourselves and acknowledge ourselves as an individual, we are still under her energy, under her field. Does that make sense?
Oh, that definitely makes sense. It definitely makes
And
sense. And you can see that. I'm one of 11 kids, and I'm a people watcher. I love people
yeah,
watching, right? And I've always been known as the black sheep because I was the oddball out, shall we say, right? But being able to sit back and watch my siblings, I've got 6 sisters, and I can see how they play the role of our mother more
yeah,
than maybe some of the others, and
yeah,
and with 4 brothers, I can see where they impact, my father, right?
yeah,
And also, different aunts and uncles or grandparents and stuff like that. And I can remember as a little girl, um, connecting with my grandparents on both sides, and them
mm,
telling me stories about their childhood and some of the tragic. My dad's mom, my gosh, what that woman went through, and it was during the Depression, right? And she had 12 children, but a
wow,
lot of them died at a very early age, and so she
yeah,
had that burden, right? And then they moved from Iowa to Montana and left my
mm,
dad and brother, who were 8 and 9 at the time, on the family farm at home to help grandma and grandpa with the farming, because
mm,
that's just what you did, and so to be, to have to leave your child there. Now that it's on both sides, the child has to think about, it's like, okay, how come you never come back? right? Because they're thinking, okay, I'm going to stay here and help grandma and grandpa on the farm. But then winter came, and then summer came, and winter came, and summer came, and they never were reunited with the parents, right? Because that was 900 miles apart. You know, back in that day, the traveling wasn't what it is today, right?
Exactly.
You know, and so it's not like you just fly out there. That wasn't heard of. You know, so I can look at some of the things, you know, that my dad was dealing with, and then how his sister, you know, responded, how they responded to each other, because she thought he had the best life because he was on the farm and they never had to go hungry. He always had everything they did to do, right? And then my dad is thinking, what are you talking about, right? Because he didn't know what their life was as a child growing up, you know, 900 miles away in the city, and grandpa was in the coal mines, right? And so there's some days that they didn't know if they were going to have dinner on the table. He didn't know that. It wasn't his fault, right? You know, and you know, so it's like here my dad is thinking, you know, you had mom and dad. I didn't. They just dumped me and my brother. They just left us, right? So what were we, chopped liver? You know, so there's all these things that goes through a child's mind. And you're seeing two completely different worlds here at that time. You know, to step back and to kind of watch that happen. And listen to how my dad spoke and listen to how my aunt spoke. It was amazing. It was amazing. And then my grandpa actually died when some of the kids were still little, right? And so it really makes, it just kind of put a different perspective on what you were sharing here early in the conversation, on how that really makes sense now with that ancestral lineage thing coming up forward. It really, like, wow, solidified, you know, the things like you say, you know what you know, but you really don't know how you know it, but you just know you do. And
you feel it on an energetical level.
You do feel it. And again, that intuitiveness, you know, and I've always been intuitive as a child, and obviously you have been too. And those messages would come in. And when you tried to speak them, because they were just, you know, it was just conversation, you know, it would be like, what is going on with this child, you know? And so you learn how to, you know, not say certain things. Now, I kept my intuitiveness, and I used it because I was small, so I was always getting picked on. But I could get even when I used my intuitiveness. I could instigate things, get other people in trouble and not be there, you know, things like that. You know, so I held on to my intuitiveness, which I really thank, you know, the divine intelligence, you know, for that.
Absolutely.
And to be able to utilize that. And you know, some of the times I shared with my mom, you know, some of the stuff that was going on when she was up there in her 70s, and my aunts. You know, we were all sitting around. Just having a drink one night, right? And had a little brunch, and when they were started asking me questions about the psychic stuff and things that I did, because they had it, but never spoke about it.
Exactly, that happened to me as well.
Yeah, and so now there was an environment here that they could talk about it. And know that they weren't crazy. Know that it was okay. And to have that safe environment to be able to express that was really interesting.
Exactly.
You know, and to be able to have a communication like that at that age, you know, because I think I was probably in my 40s at the time. You know, so they were in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and to be able to hear them talk about that when they had never ever been able to open their mouth about it before. And it made me feel so good to be able to have that conversation with them, because it also made me feel like I wasn't, you know, some weirdo freako, you know, because there's times when you thought that, you know.
Absolutely.
Because, it's not so much anymore, you know, now it's out there in the open. My daughters my daughter's son. He just turned 18. When he was little, he had all these questions, and my daughter knew. I mean, we talked about stuff, and she's very intuitive, and all three of my kids are. But when he started asking different questions, she would say, go talk to your grandma Bev about that, right? Because she didn't want to get into it at all. It's like, yeah, you just go talk to grandma. She'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
uh,
But also, in family constellations, they talk about a lot of the black sheep of the family. And they said they
mm-hmm.
always, the person is there to heal something, to show something that hasn't been looked at,
Right.
as I said. And they're very important figures of the family. Exactly, these people are there, for a very big purpose, and they have taken a very big, burden on their shoulders in order to
Heal that
heal.
bloodline. Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
consider yourself as lucky rather than the black sheep.
Oh, I do now. there's no
And
black
all of
sheep,
the
and it's like,
people,
yeah.
yeah, all of the people out there, and and as I said, I'm welcoming everybody to look at their life and to kind of
Right.
review and see
Right.
their repetitive patterns. This is already a sign that there's something in systemic, in their system going on, and they can ask their parents about, if they had any miscarriages, any abortions, what happened. And if there was, somebody who participated in the war, and all of this kind of gathering the information, that
Right.
means that the
Right.
healing has already started. And I'm very welcoming. And of course, if you have any questions, any stories you want to share with me, book a session or anything like that's, I know it's working. It has worked for me and for so many people. It changed their life. It helps with symptoms and also like illnesses. I'm not saying it cures them, but it's something that it can help a lot, because some of the symptoms, they could be also systemic. And for example, the asthmatic children nowadays, they could be because they had a granddad who was, gassed back in the war or something like this, and by their
Oh,
asthma,
right.
their
Right.
unconscious mind saying that, granddad, you died, losing your breath, and now instead of you, I'm gonna lose my breath from now and then.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's
That makes
to
sense. Yeah.
It makes so much sense. And this is, I'm not, this is unconscious, like it's not conscious. This is,
Right.
and after that, the symptoms disappear, because they've seen this granddad
And
who
they
has been
and
killed.
that forgiveness takes place, and yes, and that's what's
Well,
powerful when you can start
about the
shifting that.
forgiveness, Bert Hellinger has a very interesting theory, which he doesn't really, because he says that one of the laws is the balance of giving and receiving, and that's very
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yes,
And
it
he
is.
says that when you are forgiving somebody, that means you're giving something from yourself. So already you're in balance with this person. So by giving, you make this person, he has to give you something back, but he has already hurt you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a very thin line about it. I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm not gonna say anymore, and just to, people will see, and how they will feel in terms of forgiving. I know it's
Right.
a very, very big thing, and I haven't made up my mind yet about this, because I'm aware of the theory of him saying that. I'm aware of the healing powers that forgiveness has, but at the same time, how is that balancing in between you and this person? How is this law of giving and receiving being? And he says, in terms of this law, to make it a bit clearer, for example, in a relationship, you give, if you want to make the relationship grow, when your partner gives you something, not only material things, everything, it could be attention, it could be care, it could be anything, you
Right.
always give a little bit more, and then the other person gives you in return a little bit more. And that's why it's so hard sometimes to keep the balance in a relationship, because uh, we always, the receiver, the giver is, he still stays in the position of, I'm waiting for something to be given back, not consciously, of course, and this is not the intention, but it's always this balance of, I'm giving, and then I'm in a state of waiting, and then the other person, until the moment the other person will give something back, and then I'll be the one who needs to give back. And if you want the relationship to grow, you give a little bit back, but a little bit more. And if you want to, to make the relationship go, you give a little bit less.
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
and that's an important factor, that you said too, and it's that giving and receiving and the equalness with it. But it's also giving without strings attached, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's made very, very clear that, hey, now I did this for you. What are you going to do for me? And sometimes it goes unsaid, and months might be gone by, or years might have gone by, and then it's coming, yeah, you remember back in '08 when I did this for you? Now this is, you got to do this for me, right? I mean, it's like, whoa. And it's very prevalent, so again, know when you're giving. Are you giving, with no strings attached, unconditionally?
Yeah.
And this is where love from the heart needs to come from, is in that unconditionalness, right? And to receive it in that manner as well, right? So, being on both sides of the fence, when things are given unconditionally, you need to receive unconditionally, and don't question.
Exactly.
And don't question, right?
And the problem nowadays with women, I've observed, is very big, because they're not able to receive.
Oh
They're
yeah,
not
because
able.
they they devalue themselves. They don't think they're worthy or deserving of it, or it's out of the blue, all of a sudden the husband comes home with a bouquet of flowers, or a ticket to a vacation site or something, and because it's so out of the norm, where's the first thing the brain takes you? Is like, oh, what did you do wrong that you tried to buy my love or buy my attention with, right? It's like, are you guilty? Did you have an affair? Did you lose, at the gambling table? What happened here?
It could be, receiving with no strings attached, no expectations attached, and no judgment.
That's right. That's right. Just say thank you. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things for people to say, is just say thank you.
Yeah, because by receiving, we are remaining in this vulnerable position, because we don't know what we're going to receive.
Right.
And the ability to receive it is being humbled and being open to the unexpected and non-judgment, and and you don't know how big that's going to be. And sometimes people find hard to receive, exactly because they don't know how they're going to make the return, because
exactly
you remain obligated to to return something. You want to, and I'm not saying that it should be something physical, as a present, or to do something for this person. Sometimes it could be the gratitude in your eyes, this big gratitude, like from the bottom of your heart. Thank you for what you've done and what you've given me.
Right. And it's not about taking yourself, again, it's that giving unconditionally and the receiving unconditionally, so that you don't feel obligated or guilty because you can't one up it, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so again, this is communication, opening those lines of communication, with the people that are closest to you, so that it doesn't have to be, I got to one up you this time, and that happens sometimes with friends as well as with spouses and stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh gosh, Juliet, we could talk forever on this stuff. We're gonna definitely get you back on the show. So the audience out there that is listening, comment below. Tell us what you loved most about this beautiful young woman here, who is changing the world one person at a time, one generation at a time, right?
Exactly.
One generation at a time, right? And reach out to her if you think that's something that she can help you with. And what we'll do is we'll go back in, we'll edit this little video on the top here, put up what the name of her systemic constellation system is, and the author. If you want to do some research on that yourself, you're welcome to do that. And we put the little card up here a moment ago, so you know how to get a hold of Julia. Let's put it up here again. Juliet, there she is. Systemic Family Constellation. Juliet, happyladies@gmail.com. And again, comment below or private message either one of us, And I want to thank you again so much for being here. And
Thank you.
we will definitely stay in touch and see what we can do to bring you back another day. So everyone, it's time to do what? It's time to go out there and be that best you can be, because Juliet and I are going to do what? We are going to be the best we that we can be. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.